The Western Cape Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety has deployed its Law Enforcement Advancement Plan Rapid Response Unit to Atlantis outside Cape Town. It says there's a worrying upsurge in violence in the area. Now, this follows the killing of 5 people in a mass shooting in that area. 5 others were left wounded. We'll bring you more on this story in later bulletins on Full View. While staying in Cape Town, a memorial service will be held today for former Judge Willem Heath, who died last week at the age of 79. The service at the Stellenberg Dutch Reformed Church in Durbanville, Cape Town, is open to the public. For more on this, we now cross live to SABC News Reporter Vanessa Poonah. Good afternoon, Vanessa. Without a doubt, the South African judiciary and the country at large is mourning the passing of the former judge, whose commitment, of course, to upholding justice is a legacy worth celebrating. And indeed, today, his legacy is being celebrated in the form of a memorial service. Take us through the program.
Yes, good afternoon to you. And indeed, his legacy has been celebrated by both friends, family, as well as those in the legal fraternity. Just now, we heard from a colleague that was alongside him in the Special Investigating Unit, describing him as a hero, an idol, but also as a father of the fight against corruption at the SIU. I'm joined now by Advocate Gerard Versaghi, just to recap on his special tributes brought here to the late former Judge Willem Heath. Advocate, a very warm good afternoon to you. You said just now that Judge Willem Heath was ahead of his time in terms of the way he perceived law, what he's done in the fight against corruption. I mean, you were there alongside with him. When you remember Judge Heath, when you pay tribute to him, those are what comes to mind.
Yes, indeed. He was the father of the SIU. It was his concept of using civil law as a weapon in the fight against corruption and maladministration, which is at the heart of the creation of the SIU and at the heart of its current working methodology. It is something which is unique in the legal landscape across the world, and it is something that is a true legacy that he left behind. To us at the SIU at the time, he was, and to me personally, he was a role model and a mentor and in fact a hero in the manner in which he conducted himself, the fantastic work ethic he showed, and the understanding of the law that he always carried with him, even from his days on the bench.
You've told us an anecdote about having an office right next door to him, but of course you wouldn't enter unless you were wearing a jacket. That speaks to the gravitas of the man, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think gravitas is the word. But that is exactly how it was. I was his second in command in the early days of the SIU and Heath Commission, but even though I was in the office next to him, whenever I went to his office, he would phone me and I would walk over to him and I would first put on my jacket before talking to him.
Thank you so much for your remembrances and, of course, your contributions towards paying tribute to the late judge. I also have with me someone who's talked a bit about how young law students can really study the late Judge Willem Heath, and in terms of his contribution to not only shaping jurisprudence in this country, but also shaping the Bill of Rights. I'm joined now by Advocate Keith Matee. Advocate, a very warm good day to you. So you were talking about various things. I mean, you were talking about the judgment of the late former Judge Willem Heath around rape in marriages, for example. You were talking about his contribution to the Bill of Rights, the then Sky, giving people that had no voice, a voice, access to their rights, to their constitutional rights, to their rights as human beings. You've remembered him fondly as well.
Yeah, if I can just perhaps summarize two contributions of lasting kind. The first is his ability to think ahead, way ahead of his time. Like you mentioned, way before anyone else was saying that husbands can rape their wives, he found it. And he was a couple of years ahead of anyone else on that. Also legal representation, that you couldn't get a fair trial, a criminal trial, unless you were legally represented. He was way ahead of his time on that. And then in his early judgments on how to approach a Bill of Rights, which was 4 years or so before the present Constitutional Court, he wrote judgments setting out how you approach interpreting and applying a Bill of Rights. And sadly, judges subsequent to him wrote judgments using his thinking, his judgments, and never acknowledged it. So he was a good 4 or 5 years ahead of his time in that regard as well, how you approach a Bill of Rights. And sadly, it hasn't yet been acknowledged. And I certainly think that's something that a young law student wanting to do an LLD, a Doctorate of Laws, that's the type of thing they can do, see what the contribution is to the jurisprudence of Willem Heath.
On a personal note, besides the legal eagle that he was, and besides the great constitutionalist that he was, and of course his passion for civil rights and unity, how do you remember Judge as a friend? Did he have any quirks? Anything that stands out at this moment?
Yes, he although gentle in one way and very polite in court, when he gave you that slight smile and he would say, "Mr. Mateer," you knew a question was coming that was going to make you very uncomfortable. But he did it as a gentleman. So that, and then also he was clear where his values came from. That they were. That's where he was absolutely clear about, and that's why through thick and thin, at great cost to himself, he kept on referring back to the scriptures as to that's where my values come from. That's how I must give meaning to words like dignity, freedom, equality. That's why people must be represented. That's why they must have a right to a hearing. No matter how unpopular they are, they deserve that. And he gained that from his firm roots in Scripture.
Thank you so much, Advocate, for speaking to me. Of course, there, Keith Mateer, just sharing some of his tribute that he paid to the late former Judge Willem Heath a short while ago. Of course, we know that a private cremation service has taken place about a week ago. And of course, today, really an opportunity to give friends, colleagues, those in the legal fraternity and beyond, an opportunity to pay tribute to someone who has been dubbed the People's Judge.